Yesterday, I celebrated 2 years of continuous sobriety. I've never been sober for 2 years before, and frankly, I'm not sure I ever thought that that was going to be a possibility for me. In this video, I'm going to share ever so briefly about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And if you have a substance abuse issue to whatever degree or wonder if you might, please know that you're not alone. Please know that thinking you're hopeless doesn't, in fact, make you hopeless. And please reach out for help if you think you need it, or maybe if you're not even sure you need it, but you wonder if you do. Being sober is worth it, and getting help is worth it, and things can get better. And if I can get and stay sober, I think anyone can. So please reach out for support if you need it. There's a lot of people that would go to great lengths to help you stay sober. I want to thank Huel for sponsoring this video. I am someone who's been battling cancer for 8 months. It's been exhausting. And I have to admit, something I've had to work really hard to do is stop putting junk food in my mouth when I feel sad. That's where Huel comes into play for me. It is a nutritionally complete food. It is affordable, and it is very tasty. I'm an athlete as well. I own a CrossFit gym. This is where the Huel, for me, the Black Edition chocolate powder, is absolutely perfect. The Huel Black Edition powder contains all the nutrients the human body needs, including the right amount of protein, essential fats, carbohydrates, fiber, vitamins, and minerals as part of a balanced diet. So try Huel today and see what problem it might solve for you using NOAH15 as a discount code, which you can see on screen here. It's also in the video description below, or you can scan the QR code for greater ease for 15% off your next order. If you click the link below, you'll also find greens and superfoods, vitamin and energy drinks, high protein snacks, ready to drink meals, and then different bundles if that suits you. They have a quiz feature that you can take in order to find out what might be best for you. And now back to the video. In the early days for me, it was all about not drinking. How do I not drink? And in the most recent months for me, it's more focused on how do I live and how do I maintain emotional sobriety and how do I navigate life with some form of contentment and happiness. Not so much how do I just not drink. And that's pretty cool. And I wanted to highlight that right off the bat. Some of you might know that I've been working through a stage 3 cancer diagnosis this past year, and that's been bonkers. To put it really formally, it's been a bonkers experience. And I never thought about drinking the entire time, and that's pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. It's a testament to being in recovery. It's a testament to 12-step recovery for me. And it really highlights the fact that we can change and people can change. I drank for the first time at 13, and I had a white light experience, which just means that I drank and everything felt perfect. Everything clicked into place for me once alcohol entered my body. It was a magical, wonderful experience, and it changed me forever. After I drank for the first time, I was no longer interested in childlike things the same way. I was no longer curious about having fun in the same way. Alcohol took what I already have to admit was a pretty great childhood as far as how I remember it, and it amplified it. It's like, okay, well, that was good. I never remember being down, depressed, or wanting when I was younger, before I was 13 and had my first drink. But I did reach a new level of awareness that you could feel even better. And I pursued it at great lengths. But I didn't necessarily have a ton of access to it, and I didn't necessarily get in too much trouble with it throughout high school. Some, but not much. My mental health was still good at that time, and that's gonna come up in this video. When I was younger, I have no memories of having issues with my mental health, and to that effect, I didn't run to alcohol to help me feel less sad or less anxious. I just thought alcohol was fun, and I wanted more fun. Alcohol was really awesome at making a good experience a better one. That was the early relationship with alcohol. But I was in a committed high school relationship, and I had friends, and I had sports, and I pursued those things. And after high school, I contended for the first time with my mood not cooperating the way that I was used to. But I didn't know what was happening, so that I was having my first depressive episode. I just think it was a mild to moderate one. But I remember having it. I remember dealing with my first experiences with flatness and apathy and sadness and dread and things like that. And alcohol was extremely effective at treating those symptoms in my early adulthood. I was in college I was completely ill prepared for my future, or the future I thought I was supposed to pursue. But if I had alcohol, I kind of thought everything was going to be okay. And my drinking increased from high school, where it was like, if I could on the weekends, to every weekend for sure in my freshman year in college, and then as often as I could. And to get straight to when I went to rehab for the first time, 25 years old, I was not doing well. I was not progressing in my life, and I was drinking more than I'd ever drank, which was 3 to 4 times a week. And I was that guy that seemed to need or want to drink when a lot of people were okay with not. And my parents had been in recovery. They were sober. And when my life was floundering, I was like, I better get sober. Maybe this will help. And I'm skipping a lot of stuff. But I went to rehab, learned a few things, came out, and eventually drank again. And that's when I started this channel, because shortly thereafter I had a mental breakdown.
My name is Noah, and I've decided to start a mood journal. I suffer from major depression, anxiety, depersonalization disorder, and now low testosterone. That low testosterone part of all this could be just one of the main reasons I can't seem to get better.
I didn't drink much for a couple of years after I had that mental breakdown. I've detailed my whole life experience on this channel, but when I started to feel better from my mental breakdown in my later 20s, 27, 28, drinking sounded like a good idea again. And 3 weeks ago, after almost 2 years of sobriety, I relapsed. And that was my whole relationship with alcohol, is that it made life doable, but it created a lot of problems. But as long as it was helping, which it always seemed to whatever degree, to whatever warped perception I had, it always seemed to help me get through life. And I've always found life to be fairly uncomfortable as an adult. Existing has always felt fairly uncomfortable in varying degrees. Like if I pay too close attention, I always seem to realize I don't feel very good, or I'm kind of worried about how to do all this. And alcohol was my best friend in that regard. When I drank, I would feel different, and often quite a bit better. And then I would cope with life better despite the consequences of alcohol, such as reduced productivity, hangovers, some physical issues, things like that. There's a give and take. But as long as there's that or give, it was worth it. And my drinking slowly progressed in my 20s until I was 30. And I found myself thinking I need to go to rehab again, because now I'm drinking more than I'd ever drank, and I'm drinking a little weirder than I'd ever drank, and I'm having more consequences in my marriage and my finances and my mental health. It's just not going very well.
Hey, yeah. You're drunk. You're drunk. And that's what you get to record. Fucker.
And I could feel it increasing. And again, I knew that if I could just get sober, that was always like an example I had because of my parents and people I'd met in 12-step recovery programs in my 20s. There was safe haven to be had there. And so I went back to rehab. And that was at the beginning of the pandemic. I am going to check into inpatient rehab. I'm drinking 5 to 6 days a week, 12 to 15 standard drinks per binge each night. And I'm in bed every day till 2, maybe 3:30, just detoxing and sweating and trying to sleep and rehydrate and stuff. And I got sober for a couple months, and then I relapsed and I drank my way through the pandemic. And from mid-February to mid-March, I went to inpatient treatment at Crestview here in Portland, Oregon for alcoholism. And a week after I got out, I relapsed. I've had people ask me like, well, why did you drink? And I'm just like, I don't know. And during this time, I had very much a head full of recovery or 12-step and a belly full of booze. There was a lot of that. This is probably when cognitive dissonance really increased for me, meaning who I think I am or who I thought I was and what I was actually doing, they were not aligning, and the discomfort of the fact that those two things were not connected was becoming more noticeable for me. I was dealing with more shame and more stress, and I documented all of this on the channel. This is all YouTube time. But alcohol was still working for me. I mean, it's like something you hear in recovery rooms, and this is very much my experience. At first, it was just fun with no consequences, and I never considered a little bit of a hangover a consequence at the time. because I could always drink and then pursue my life, be excited about stuff when I was younger. And then it was fun with some consequences, but it was filling a need, helping me with my mental health, helping me. And there were some consequences because now I was calling in sick to work, and my girlfriend my girlfriend was getting stressed out about my drinking. I knew I was drinking a little too much, but I was still pursuing life or whatever. But there was just a give and take. In a couple more years, I fumbled and bumbled my way into more aggressive, more strange, more uncomfortable drinking. But there was always this part of me that was like, look, alcohol still is doing that thing. And I need that because I cannot imagine a life without it. But I really was starting to think I can't imagine a life with it. So, as it progressed and my drinking volume increased to probably 4 or 5 days a week, and as I started to have more experiences where it's like, okay, I want to stop drinking, but I can't, I could convince myself that was maybe a fluke. Maybe I just don't really want to, whatever it takes to keep drinking. But I eventually got myself into rehab for the 3rd time. Decided to go back to treatment. But this time, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I want it to stick. I sincerely want to not want this substance in my body all the time and then hate it all while imbibing like an absolute savage, like an absolute animal. Something is clicking in me that's like realizing how dangerous alcohol is. And I was in rehab for 5 months on that 3rd one. And I came out and I stayed sober for a time, and I got really smart. Learned a lot at that rehab, and I came out with a fairly big head about being sober and staying sober, and I felt very invincible or something. But I was like I heard this in a reading, but I was like a boy whistling in the wind. No idea just how lost he was, and I didn't realize how unready I was to be done. A major life event came up, a dear friend passed away, and I was ill-equipped to handle this big issue with life. So on August 21st, I drank again after 10 and a half months of continuous sobriety. And for a couple more years, I drank, and we're finally gonna get into when I finally got sober. And in that time, my drinking did what it had been showing signs of doing, which is progressing. I found myself drinking eventually every day. I found the amount of alcohol I was drinking increased to about, let's say, a bare minimum of 12 standard drinks a night, but it was usually 14 to 16, and it became 6 to 7 days a week, and it became in a short period of time I would drink in a couple hours. I couldn't start drinking earlier because I would get drunk too fast and I would pass out. And so the only way to mitigate that was to wait till the end of the day, to spend all my days detoxing, laying in bed till noon, if I could, taking sauna-like showers, flooding my body with electrolytes and vitamins, appearing to walk through life as functionally as I could, but a shell of myself, and then wait till the end of the day I could drink. And drinking became the only thing I lived for. I was obsessive about my drinking. I always thought about when I would drink, how much I would drink, where I would drink, what I would need to do to make sure I was drinking. How could I get through the day so that I could drink? But alcohol was still kind of doing that thing for me. It wasn't as good at it, but it still made life okay. It still addressed this ache inside of me that started as an adult. And I was addicted, and I was going to soon find out just how addicted, because I think one of the biggest misnomers I had about alcohol was that at some point I'll just stop, and I'd always fall back on that, maybe later, and I always assumed I had that choice. And it took until my last 2 years of drinking leading up to my sobriety date to realize that I had completely and utterly lost the ability to choose my drink. I never knew when I would drink, how much I would drink. I assumed when I would drink and how much I would drink, but I never knew what would happen thereafter. And my mental health was getting worse, and my drinking was getting worse, and the relief I was feeling was getting shorter. That thing that it had always done, it wasn't happening anymore, and it really, really scared me.
The epiphany I often come to at the end of the night, if I happen to still be coherent, is that there's never enough. It's never fine enough to feel a certain way, and you wish you hadn't drank at all. And if I drink anymore, I'll just hurt more tomorrow, because there's never enough to make it all feel perfect tonight. There's never enough to make it all feel perfect.
This life. And And then when it was time to back away, I just found that I couldn't. And it's a shitty place to be. And it's a very scary, scary, overwhelming state of existence for an alcoholic of my type. I was very much damned if I do, damned if I don't. And I think the relief I was getting from drinking, in every sense of the word, was about 5 to 10 minutes, because the gig was up and I knew it, and I couldn't stop drinking, and my marriage was on the precipice of falling apart, and there was no career to be had, and my business was failing, and I was depressed and dealing with daily anxiety from withdrawal. And so then I crawled back into 12-step rooms, and I drank another 6 weeks. And I remember the last weekend, I was going to meetings every day, and the last weekend of my drinking was the worst drinking experience of my life. I felt like a crazy person, and I didn't think I would ever be able to stop drinking, and I believed it. And I had a panic attack on my last night of drinking. A true and vivid and sincere panic attack. And I had homicidal, but probably more like suicidal thoughts while I was having this panic attack, trying not to black out, taking cold showers in the middle of the night on September 16th, 2023. Praying and begging that I didn't black out, because I didn't know if I was getting confused, and I didn't know if I was going to wander outside and where I would go and what would happen. It was very scary. I just had a panic attack, which, by the way, still to this day, I still don't get how that can happen as drunk as I was. I was extraordinarily drunk and I had a panic attack. And I laid in bed shivering and shaking, and I was a broken man. And I had been broken many, many times. But that was the most broken I perceived myself to have ever felt. Broke my heart when it stopped working. I never would have believed it till it happened to me. However, that brings me to now, or to sobriety, to recovery. September 17th, I walked back into a 12-step meeting, a very broken man. I couldn't make eye contact with anyone, and I surrendered. And I wouldn't have known that it was my last surrender, one day at a time, but 2 years giving me some perspective and some hindsight, I really was desperate, and that's good. Desperation is a good place for me. Desperation and pain lend themselves well to change for me. And that first night of sobriety, I slept in my mom's bed because I was so afraid of myself and what I might do and where I might go. I'd lost all sense of who I was and what would happen and how I would behave. And by the grace of God, by the grace of a God of my understanding, and the warm embrace of 12-step recovery programs, and friends and family, and God, and fate, I made my way through early sobriety, and I got a sponsor who's still my sponsor. And I found a home group. And I finally started really listening. I've always wanted to be sober. I've had that want for a very long time. But this last time, I really, really seemed to realize that if I didn't stay sober, death or something maybe worse was coming. I really felt it deep, deep, deep in my core. And I did not know if I was going to be able to stay sober. And I thought I was one of those hopeless types, because I tried so many times, and for a variety of reasons, some of which are obvious and some are a little more hard to uncover, I couldn't or wouldn't stay sober. So I thought I was one of those hopeless cases that was incapable of being honest with himself. And I was wrong. And I finally did the things, did the simple suggestions, and it worked for me. And I let go of everything I thought I knew, and I prayed to a God I didn't understand, and I worked through the 12 steps of this 12-step program, and I went to meetings, and I got a service position, and I found a home group, and I met with my sponsor, and I just kept going because I had no hope, and I didn't know what else to do. And before I knew it, I started obsessing about alcohol less, and before I knew it, I started to feel a little bit more okay. And before I knew it, a day turned into a week, turned into a month, and pretty soon I was collecting time, and things were just getting better. Things were still hard at times between my ears, and my mood had a lot of readjustment, and I had a lot of fear to work through. But there was always hope in those rooms, and I surrounded myself with people that took their recovery very serious, and with this newfound perspective that my life depended very much on this, and I actually believed it for once. I truly believed it, not just in theory. I clung to them, and I clung to the rituals and the practices, and I just did what I was told. I gave myself permission to tackle sobriety one more time while letting go of everything I thought I knew about it. It was a very the death of my ego, as far as I can tell, happened. And I built up to and took a year sober. And I'd done that before, and I was very worried about it because I'd relapsed after a year. But my marriage was as good as it ever been. All of a sudden, like normal, life had hope and potential and possibility again. And then year 2, I had all these ideas. I was like, man, I made it to year 2. I couldn't believe it. I felt safe in my sobriety, felt safe in my recovery. I was participating, I was living, life was happening. I had a gym, I had my YouTube, my marriage, which is the most important thing in the world, was going well. And it was the best I'd ever felt, ever, as an adult, as far as the consistency of my sense of wellness, my excitement and my curiosity for life, and then my mental health or whatever. It was all going really well. And a couple months into year 2, I was diagnosed with stage 3 appendix cancer. And that was tough and wild and scary. And I have documented it on this channel. It's what we've spent most of the last year talking about on this channel. That's what I've wanted to share. It's been the most obvious thing going on in my life, and I needed and wanted a lot of support. And I appreciate you guys giving it to me. But as it pertains to drinking, something pretty magical happened, which is that I never, ever thought alcohol was going to make things better. I have come to a place one day at a time that that alcohol no longer sounds like a solution to my problems as it once did. And that's a gift for an alcoholic like me. I spent all my time either thinking about drinking or not drinking. And the second year, I have been able to come face to face with my mortality, which I'm still processing. I've had mental health lapses, and I think I'm in the middle of one right now, but that's for a different video. And I've had stressors and decisions to make, and I just have had a difficulty that I never imagined would come in this whole cancer thing. But I never ever thought about drinking. And I mostly maintained pretty good mental health and hope and connection to God. And it's all a gift of recovery, because, dude, I can't imagine what I would have done this last year if I were still in my cups or if I were early in sobriety. Alcohol was my best friend, and then it stopped working, and then I needed a sufficient substitution, and I found one in God and in recovery. And that substitution has carried me through the hardest year of my life from a circumstantial perspective. And I just think that's a miracle, and I just want to say it and say it again. A drunk like me, an alcoholic like me, has been able to face cancer without thinking about alcohol to make himself feel better. And I have felt very afraid and in want of feeling differently. And I had plenty of solutions: talking, going to meetings, being with friends, exercise, food for sure. Won't deny that I've leaned on food to feel better, and just rituals in my program, and finding ways to be of service. But I want you to know that right now, for today, it's not about not drinking for me. It's about how to live life on life's terms, how to stay emotionally sober, how to cope and handle life in its unpredictability without self-destructing, without falling prey to old behavior patterns. It's about learning about myself. It's about being more open and honest. It's about trying to live more sincerely. And I'm still very much early in that process, but it seems that for today, my brain no longer thinks alcohol will make anything better. It will not make my situation better or make me more happy. I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form for today. I also want to say, though, that I've come to terms with this idea that time is not a tool. And I think in the past I thought it was, and I'll explain what that means to me. It's something my sponsor says a lot. He just said it to me yesterday when we met. But having 2 years sober does not make me think that I've got this whole being sober thing figured out. I think that it just means that what I have done has been working one day at a time, and that I have more experiences that can either bolster or help me understand what to do and how to handle life as I go forward. But in the past, I've thought, okay, I've gotten a month sober, 6 months sober, I don't want to think about alcohol or recovery anymore. I want to live. And it's taken me a lot of time and a lot of relapse and a lot of suffering to finally accept that for me, I will need to address untreated alcoholism which is just the way I think and engage with the world. Every day, if I want to stay sober personally, I subscribe to this idea. It keeps my life pretty simple. Every day I wake up with untreated alcoholism. What will I do on any given day to stay sober and stay emotionally sober and in recovery? Because there are people that just don't drink that are quite miserable, and there are people that don't drink but also work some form of recovery program, and it doesn't have to be 12-step, and they're quite happy. At the very least, they're quite content, and they can count on themselves, and they can put their best foot forward in the face of tremendous difficulty, which I do believe I've mostly done this last year with cancer and everything. Granted, I had so much help, including help from you guys, so thank you. So I don't want to lean on my time, but I want to acknowledge my time. I'm thankful for 2 years sober. It is exciting to know that everything going forward, everything coming up here, I've never done before. And I hated living in purgatory of addiction, in the revolving door of getting sober and then relapsing, getting sober and then relapsing. I hated it. It really, really sucked, because I always kept thinking, I've been here before, and I was so afraid of what I might do and what would happen, and then I would reinforce this behavior, and I would continue to relapse. So there's something incredibly exciting, all but a little scary at times, to know that we're in uncharted territory. So the adventure of life has the potential to be adventurous as opposed to hyper repetitive and Groundhog's Day-like. Being sober has not meant being happy every day. I don't believe in chasing happiness, but it has meant being content and at peace with myself almost all the time. My cognitive dissonance has wildly improved, and now it's smaller things like, why did I tell a white lie? Like, I wonder what that's all about, and explore. Why do I embellish sometimes? What's that about? Why do I say I'm going to do something and sometimes not? What's that about? How come I think there's something bad or wrong about me, or I compare myself to other people and find myself feeling small? What's that all about? It's a lot more of like little things like that, like a chance to gently explore my nature and my behavior and things like that, and then get closer to God, and then just lovingly move forward and see what I might learn and how I might grow and all of those things. I have felt depressive feelings for sure in sobriety, and I felt more joy than I ever have in sobriety. It's been everything. I think I might be working through early phases of a clinical depression right now. I hope I'm wrong. I wanted to save that comment for the end of the video, but I'm going through something the last month and a half, and I don't know what that's all about, and I'm trying not to get scared about it. But we'll talk about that more when the time is right. But I wouldn't trade being sober for the world. And there's still a part of me that feels lost and confused and insecure and empty, but I know I can get through it and I can handle it, because I'm in recovery, and because I have God in my life, and because I'm here. There's a safety here that is irreplaceable to me on a day-to-day basis. And there's only one thing harder than being sober, staying sober, and being in recovery, and that's being an active alcoholic. That's being a drinker for me. And I am free today. I am free to navigate the cabin, assuming I put God first and turn my will over each and every day to the best of my ability. And I will take that hands down all day, every day, no matter what's going on, compared to the bondage of active addiction. That hurt. And life can still hurt, but not like that. So, anyway, if you got anything out of that, God bless you. Please, in the comments below, what has your sobriety experience been like if you're sober? And what are you going through right now if you're struggling to get sober or stay sober? I have tried every form of staying sober without 12-step recovery, by the way, and I have personally been unsuccessful. But I know that there's a lot of different ways to skin this cat, and there's a lot of different ways to do this whole thing. This has just been what's worked for me. Okay, my God, that was a long video. If you're still here, 1, you're loco. But 2, put in the comments hope, because I do think there's always hope, and there's always help if we reach out for it. And if you're not sure what to do or how to get started, just keep trying, keep asking questions, don't give up. It is worth it. It is worth it. I'm done. I gotta get out of here. I'll see you guys in the next video.